Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're gonna be sitting down with Brian Brosdahl, and we're gonna be talking about the early ice bite on a number of different popular fisheries. So without further ado, let's kick it right off. We're gonna start with the number one, probably most popular spot that gets fished on early ice, at least here in the state of Minnesota, and that is Upper Red Lake.
You know, early ice on Red Lake can be phenomenal, and I always fish at early ice. I like it from the time you can walk out until there's machine travel, and then I get a little bit busy back at home. But when you first go out on red, safe ice, non-moving ice, because it's big water, that close to 50,000 acres that we're allowed to fish is so vast, but it's very unnecessary to go way, way, way out there. There's so much shoreline related walleye activity. One thing I like to do is to go past the shoreline break, and there's always somebody that gets there before you, so you get little reports. But for the most part, 8 to 9 feet of water is really good. They still catch fish in 5-6 feet of water, but for daytime activities, I think they're going to be just a little bit farther off, especially now that ice is there. The water clears up. It's darker lake, but it's still not as muddled as it was. A good wavy freeze up helps, and but also can hurt it too if it gets too rough. But for the most part, spoons and fatheads work really well. I love the buckshot glass rattle spoons here. These have really cool translucent paint jobs, but that little rattle is super loud, and you just, it's unbelievable. Put a little minnow head on that and let it go. But I'll even tail hook a fathead minnow on this, on the treble hook, and they don't seem to care. And then you want a good St. Croix Scandic rod when you're out there, because you want to set the hook and you want to have a good, a semi relaxed tip, a softer tip, but you want it extra fast, so you get that spoon dancing, but you want to set the hook with backbone. So I do love the St. Croix Scandic for that. A couple of really cool spoons. One of my favorites, the Brobug spoon. Red Glow for Red Lake. Everything south of there, if you get Leech Cast, Winnie, Bemidji, Grand Rapids area, this is a great color. There's something about, they call it Sneeze. It's a crazy name, but it's a great color. Wonder Bread, Purple Wonder is really good, and but that is an excellent Red Lake choice, but in red. So Brobug spoon, red with a fathead. If you're running and gunning on Red Lake, if you like to drill holes and keep moving, then I definitely would use a coffin spoon. Drop it down, it flutters, it flips, it does something different every single time that you jig it. So the coffin spoon, and you know, I love these things. I use them in open water also. I've got many limits just pitching these. Just a great jigging spoon with a flicker tail, as you can see there. But that Red Glow is super good on red. But sometimes Wonder Bread, sometimes the translucent perch patterns on the buckshot glass rattle spoon. You got to check those out. I had a chance to use them all winter. Most of my big fish came on them. But having a tethered minnow on a small sharp hook, like a little Gamakatsu hook, works really well with a split shot. So if you're on red, know that a lot of fish are going to come in, but it's really good to have a live bait presentation down. And if you want to try for a huge pike, Red Lake has them. We know Lake of the Woods and Red aren't far away from having their ice coming on. Red Lake usually goes first, then Lake of the Woods.
All right, now speaking of Lake of the Woods, now we're gonna transition from Red Lake up to Lake of the Woods, where Bro's got a few more tips.
You know, Lake of the Woods is a different animal through the ice. It is just a spectacular lake, over 1 million acres. Some of it on the Canadian side, and these border waters hold monster walleyes, super giant pike, and big everything. And there's saugers as a bonus for eating fish. Early ice, typically the main lake is big, and depending on wind, it's all wind related. Sometimes it takes a while for it to freeze up, but the bays, all these little bays around the lake will freeze, and when they start getting safe ice, 4 inches of ice, the pike anglers go out there and they set tip ups, and everybody's vying and trying for a 40-inch plus pike. Then as time progresses and anglers get up to 4 Mile Bay or other bays of Lake of the Woods, they'll go out there and fish walleyes. And 4 Mile Bay is in itself is a giant lake, but when you can get across Pine Island, the race is on. It's too far. Well, you can walk it, but really it's too far to walk with a lot of gear. Some people do it, but when the machine travels there and you can get across Pine Island, then they let you walk on the other side or take a machine. The walleye fishing is spectacular. They're aggressive, and you can jig with spoons. Tipped with a minnow head, sounds cliche, but it works really well. And varying sizes of minnow head. If you snip it off halfway, you get a half a minnow. Works really good if you're fishing for bigger fish or super aggressive fish to kind of bump up the size structure. A dorsal hooked minnow, jigged on a hook works really well. A minnow head works really good, and it doesn't impede the action of your spoon. If you put too big of a chunk on here, you're going to take some of its action away. And on a Brosdahl spoon, it's more of a vertical presentation to drop down. And the Lake of the Woods, red glows, perch patterns work really well. And I was really surprised how well chrome blue with orange works really well. Different spoons, make sure you load up on a bunch of different colors. Wonder Bread is a really good color for Lake of the Woods also. And there's something about these colors, when you're jigging them, create strikes in fish. Numbers of fish, not every fish is a 30-incher, but you have a chance for one. And lots of eater fish. And there you're allowed to have sauger and walleyes both. And the real thing too to remember, in low pressure situations or cold fronts, even on early ice, bring some plain hooks or just tail hook a minnow on a small spoon. The spoon attracts them, but they're not afraid of a tail hooked minnow there. The water's a little darker, and so that works really well. Don't need a bobber. When that St. Croix, that tip bends, you set the hook. So just remember, go loaded with a bunch of different spoons and give it a try. But I like to try different colors, and even little variances in colors. Gold is a really good color. See if I can get it here. And silver. Remember that gold and silver represent a lot of the shiners in the lake. So a gold Brosdahl spoon works really well. That looks like 14 karat gold right there. With the little beady eyes, and put a minnow head on there. The coffin spoon, even in silver. Silver is the forgotten color. Everybody wants gold. I've done really well in silver using emerald shiners as a forage base color. Emerald shiners are silver, and there's tulipies and whitefish in there, so a lot of silver stuff. But there's two colors. Metallics work really well. So try different colors, different patterns. Use a dead stick. Travel light, and put some cleats on, because if there's no snow on the ice, you don't want to get a concussion. A lot of people end up in a hospital when they slip with no cleats. Cleats are cheap, hospitals are expensive. So, but get out there, and I'm drilling a lot of holes when I go on Lake of the Woods. Cover water, expansive flats. Drop my 360. My Humminbird 360 will show a fish traffic. It's like having a big stoplight in the middle of a whole bunch of lanes. You can see where the fish are going, and then drill a bunch of holes around the area, drop the 360 in the middle, and if you see fish, don't stop over there. Round your feet, just take your time over there. We've watched fish disappear using Mega Live and 360. So once the 360 tells you where to go, I'll have my Mega Live transducer and drop it down.
Now we're gonna transition from Lake of the Woods down into the northern Minnesota area where Bro calls home. And this whole area is really a popular place for early ice because it freezes a lot earlier than the rest of the state down in Minnesota, and there's some really good bites.
Whether I'm, north of Grand Rapids, south of Grand Rapids, Bemidji, all the way out east, north of Duluth, I like to start with the weeds. Where the weed lines were is a good way to go. And a lot of lakes are getting clearer. There's still some lakes with some stain to them. And one of my ways to start is to use a glass buckshot spoon. Now you can see that's like a golden perch. But those little beads there are super loud. And so I'll put one of those on. If I'm on a stained lake with little bog stain, I'll go with red glow. perch works everywhere, but red glow is really good. But I found little changes in some lakes. Like there's a lake with some bog stain. They're really like that silver shiner color. It's got a little slight blue and gray with silver. Super loud, but translucent, so you get really dramatic effects. And there's like a green perch pattern. And then of course, chrome silver orange is just fantastic. But so start out when I'm fishing for walleyes using a minnow head, punch a bunch of holes, and some of the lakes really got clear. Leech is really clear, Winnie is really clear, Bemidji's clear, Cass is super clear. Fish are spooky. It's really hard to go just drill holes and catch them because they keep swimming away, as we see with forward viewing and Mega Live. But so you want to drill your holes and then let them rest and then fish them. You know, obviously if you leave your holes, you just made holes for somebody else, so don't be too far from your holes, and go through and jig them. But fish can see up high in clear water, so I jig from the ice down. I'll start, you know, fish halfway down or even right at the ice if I'm in less than 10 feet of water, because fish are looking up at minnows coming through. Drop it down and jig it as you're going down, and I rarely fish on the bottom, especially early ice. The fish are aggressive and swim in and attack. So start jigging your glass rattle spoons just under the ice. Work your way down. You know, the old way, I was always told, go to the bottom and work your way up. But I have seen now, using forward viewing, 360, down imaging, side imaging, everything, walleyes are hardly ever right on the bottom, except during frontal conditions. So I'll hit these lakes, find the weed edges. On lakes like Leech Lake, there's miles, there's thousands of acres of weeds, but the really good edges that face the big water always hold the fish. And these are places where tullabies and whitefish come in to spawn in the fall, and they hold and harbor some of the biggest walleyes in the lake and pike. So check these spots out because they're going to be lingering around. They follow them in the fall. The fall bite doesn't stop at ice. That's why everybody loves early ice, because the fall bite is still in full swing. And so we like to get out there safe ice, of course. But so weed lines, and then the deeper water are structures and humps when we can. And on some of these lakes, they're 20, 60, 100,000 acres. So you're talking miles, a dozen miles sometimes, where it's nice to have a machine. So once ice gets formed, it doesn't take long. Pressure ridges, stay away from them. Don't cross them if you don't have to. I like to go on shore around them if I'm going to do anything. I don't want to go across them. They get hollow spots and you go through, but there's all kinds of stuff about ice safety online. You can check it out. Make sure to check it before you go. But on big water, you gotta be ultra cautious. And I always like to bring friends, as long as they can keep a secret.
All right, now we're gonna leave the state of Minnesota and we're gonna head west. Is that west or is this west? I don't know which way the camera's facing, but we're gonna head west, and Bro is gonna share a few tips on another very popular early ice destination.
You know, one of my favorite lakes to go to and visit, you know, I live in northern Minnesota, but I love fishing Devil's Lake or the area. I have friends there, like to go fishing. I do not guide there. For me, it's fun fishing. I can go over there and a lot of places to stay and a lot of bays and places to fish. Walleyes relate to brush there. And there's some big jumbo perch, but early ice, it's a great place to get at some walleyes. And it's surprisingly, you don't have to go super far out there. Just find some willows near shore, as sometimes the shore is steep in areas, so to get down to the ice, you definitely want to just have your auger and a bucket and target walleyes. They have a really good night bite there because Devil's Lake is clear. It's full of shrimp, and the bays and all the stuff attached to it are good. There are lakes that freeze first in the area that get all of the credit. Some of the shallow lakes nearby Devil's Lake that are connected by little streams or ditches or culverts, these lakes really are popular, and so I'll target wherever I can get out, and if I have to walk down a hill or if we could take a machine, that's great. But Devil's Lake is a fish factory. It produces lots of walleyes, and the walleyes will go wherever they can get through. And there's been many times I've actually fished tournaments and championships out there, and sometimes walleyes will be in basically a little swamp or a ditch on the other side of the road. They had to go through a culvert to get there. It's super cool, nothing like it. And quality fish, grow fast. The pike there eat shrimp also. Everything's coughing up shrimp. The pike, the meat is orange, and everybody likes going there to fish for pike, and they keep them because they're really good to eat. And of course, Devil's Lake is known for its perch, and it's got a lot of big jumbo perch exceeding a pound, sometimes a pound and a half. There's been quite a few 2-pounders, and not as many as there used to be, but every time we go out there we catch a perch that's over a pound, pound and a quarter. But we're targeting walleyes, and it's fun, just a different destination, and restaurants and places. It's a good place to go with your friends, family, and there's camaraderie there. And after years and years of fishing there, I have lots of friends in the area, guide friends, tournament friends, and people who work in the town of Devil's Lake. But good place to go, and their tourism is really good. Tanner over there really keeps a beat on what's going on with the fishing, and I like the fact that they want you to be there. They have commercial fish cleaning stations, but sometimes I just want to go there to catch fish. And surprisingly, as aggressive as you think those fish are, they are at times subtle baits. And I'm using smaller spoons and catching big perch and big walleyes. And this glass buckshot is going to be super good because it's loud, but it's clear, and they eat small stuff, so they focalize on smaller things in the water. Or a Brosdahl spoon, sneeze color is really good. Green and glow, super hot there. Red glow and orange glow with a waxworm if you're fishing perch. And we catch walleyes and waxworms too there. Sometimes just using a perch bait out there gets everything, but great place to visit. When I'm there, I'm a tourist having a great time, or I might need some pictures for some of my stuff and sponsors. But I love fishing Devil's Lake. Early ice, it doesn't get any better, and there's so much water over there. There's a lot of little lakes to explore, and a wealth of resources online to check out if you're fishing in North Dakota. South Dakota is also a great early ice destination, and there's plenty of people who go there. And Devil's Lake is a little quieter early ice because they're just coming off a duck hunting mecca, pheasants and deer hunting. So while everybody's distracted, early ice can be just fantastic.
All right, this next session from Bro is not necessarily going to be about a specific lake, but more just a few of his thoughts on choosing lakes, specifically if you're picking one type of lake versus another type of lake on early ice. And this might be applicable to maybe some of your moderate sized lakes or the smaller lakes that you might be going out on early ice.
Early ice for me is opportunity. Lakes have different ages of ice. Deep water lakes don't freeze right away. Shallow lakes freeze fast. Water gets cooler faster and they freeze. And so sometimes I can't fish for exactly what I would choose first on a list, but I have a list of lakes that I fish for whatever I can get action. Perch, bass, crappies, bluegills, walleyes. If there's walleyes in some shallow lakes, I'll target them. And fishing on the weed edge is really good. In some lakes, only have a depth in the middle of maybe 15 to 20 feet. Holds beautiful walleyes early ice. Shallow lakes tend to shut off later in the winter as the oxygen levels shrink, but early ice, safe place. So it's not where you want to go, it's where you can go. And love to get action. Small bays off of big lakes, small even channels with where boats normally park, harbors on a lot of places. And there's some places in the United States where the lakes never freeze, but the bays and harbors do, and that's where everybody fishes. And so we have those opportunities here. There'll be 4 inches of ice on shallow lakes when the other lakes are still open. So that's something to remember, is look, seek, search, find lakes that are shallow, have easy access, and always look, study the maps. Like on Humminbird Lake Master, you can study the maps. They're Minnesota maps, or if you're going to the Dakotas or if you're going to Wisconsin, they have maps with 1 foot contours. Study lakes and see if there's an access point near the road. And you know, there's some lakes you can't get on. They're private, or the access doesn't freeze, but it's where you can go. And so studying a little bit and making a list of which lakes that you want to go to early ice is the way to go. And it's what I do, and I've always done it. I have a list of lakes, and I see which ones are good to go and get out on the ice right away.
Well, that's about all we got for you. Special thanks to Bro for sharing a bunch of really good information. And remember, this time of year, if you're going out on early ice, wherever you find it, just be very careful, have all your safety equipment, and no fish is worth your life. So if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below, because we have a lot more awesome content coming later this winter. And until then, we will see you in the next one.